Happy New Year. This is actually technically the first video I filmed in the new year. I did share a video with you yesterday, but that was a video I recorded last year and I just didn't have the time to publish it. So this is the official start to the new year, and I have a whole bunch of ideas for what I want to do in the new year. I've pretty much spent the last 2 weeks doing nothing but hanging out with my family and goal setting. I've almost entirely disconnected. I think I've only been charging my phone every couple days or so, which is a very liberating feeling. I pretty much haven't been checking my phone at all. So in the midst of all this goal planning, I have an idea for a series of videos that I want to create for you on that topic. But before I do that, I did want to do one of my favorite videos to film of the year. And it's a recap or a selection of my favorite books that I've read in the previous year. So every year, I make the commitment to read 52 books. And I should say every year, probably for the last 6 years. And I did not achieve the goal this year. I did do a video recently, some of you might have seen, about can I read 13 books in essentially 13 days? I did not, but I could have. The only reason I didn't make it all the way there was because I decided to shift my attention to setting goals for the next year as opposed to just like cramming and reading. So it was just kind of an executive decision. I did make good progress though, because I think I went from 39 books to 45 or 46 books read in, I don't know, in a short span of time, basically. So I ended up reading 9 or 10 books in the month of December. So I feel really good about that. 46 books read, close enough to 52. I still feel pretty good about that. So anyway, and I think the year that my daughter was born, I only read 49 books or something. So, oh no, 3 books away. So I do set the commitment to read 52 books a year, but I'm a little lax in it in the sense that if I don't make it to 52, it's not the end of the world. Some years I go over. So I think it was last year that I made it to 60 books read. So it just kind of depends on the year. This year, I'm setting a much more audacious goal, but I'll talk about that in a later video. What I did want to do is talk about my favorite books out of the 46 that I read in 2020. And most of the books that I read are digital, but I do have some hard copies. 2 of my favorites are right here in hard copy format. I've got How to Survive a Pandemic, which I've already talked about on this channel, but I will talk about again a little bit. And Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind. But what I've done is I've come up with a list of 5 favorite books in different categories. And I'm pretty sure I did a list like this last year. I might have even done a list like this the year before, so you can check out my previous videos if you'd like. But I picked up my favorite fiction, which, spoiler alert, this is the fiction. I picked out 2 favorites from a life improvement category, and I picked out 2 favorites from a more current event category. So let's talk about them. And we might as well start with the fiction, because I only read 2 fiction books this year, which is, or last year, I guess I should start saying, which is pretty grim. Usually I like to read at least 10 fiction books out of the 52, but yeah, apparently I was not in a fiction phase this year, which is something I'm planning on remedying in 2021. I want to read a lot of fiction in 2021. But anyway, of the 2, I really liked them both. So I read The Name of the Wind by Rothfuss, and I also read, oh my goodness, and now I'm not going to come up with the title, so clearly we know why I picked this one. It was an Ernest Hemingway book that I really liked. It was autobiographical. So they were both really good books, but this is the one I have the physical copy of. I really liked it, and I have not read the second one, and I do know that if I read the second one, I will be angry that the third one has not been written yet. It's like a George R.R. Martin thing all over again. So Patrick Rothfuss is someone you could compare to George R.R. Martin in that they both write in the fantasy genre. Rothfuss's is not nearly as dark, but it's not for being set in the fantasy realm, it is not fantastical. Like, he really tries to ground magical concepts in reality so that they're believable. It's not just like you have to buy into elves and demons and stuff like this. He really tries to create a little bit of magic in the real world, and explain magic in a way that's like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense, how you could, I don't know, move things with your mind or something like that. It's a really, really neat series. Very human. I like the characters. Yeah, for being a fantasy book, if you've never really gotten into fantasy books, I feel like this would be a great great introduction to the genre, just because again it is believable, it is very human, it's not like way out in left field in terms of being like wild and fantastical. And cool tie-in, there's a lot about music in this book because the main character and his family were musicians, and that ends up being relevant to the plot, which I think is really fun. I love the way that Patrick Rothfuss writes about music, so very excited to read the second one of that. That's my fiction of the year. So the next category, I'm going to talk about life improvement books. I read a lot of these. I think the vast majority of what I read last year was probably some kind of personal development type topic-y book. I also read a decent amount of music marketing books, but I'm going to pick two. And one is more internal improvement. It's more like on a kind of, I guess, spiritual or emotional level. And the other one is external improvement, so about crafting your experiences. So let's talk about the external one first. I read a book called The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. Actually, I did read several Chip and Dan Heath books last year. I really enjoyed them. But The Power of Moments was the one that stood out the most because it's something that I've thought about a lot on a personal level. It basically tackles the question, how do you create more memorable experiences in life? And this applies to, life in general or in business. How do you bond people who work on a team? How do you create novelty in your life so that you can have rich and interesting and rewarding experiences? In that book, they talk a lot about how when we're younger, we're going through so many transitions. So we're going from high school to college, we're going from college to our first job, we're buying our first house, etc. There's so many things happening in our teens and 20s, and those transitions they're not built in anymore as we get a little bit older. So as such, our lives can become feel like there's longer pockets between changes and between memorable events and things like that. And it gives a really nice framework for creating more memorable moments in your life. I just thought it was a really cool book. And the other one, so the one more focused on internal development and growth, is a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. This is a little bit more on the woo-woo spectrum, but I find it really readable. And I want to also say as a caveat, a lot of people really like the book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I cannot get through it. It's really fluffy for me. I need something that's a little more like anchored in the earth. And I feel like The Untethered Soul covers similar ground, but in a way that doesn't feel like it's floating in outer space to me. There's a lot about just kind of like emotional and spiritual well-being, coming to being at peace, coming to terms with death and things like that. I just found it moving and profound. So that was another one I really liked. That was another 5-star book for me. And then finally, I have 2 books that are sort of in the current event kind of category. One of them being How to Survive a Pandemic. Now, Michael Greger released 2 books this year, or one of them at the very end of last year, but I read 2 of his books this year. I read How Not to Diet, fabulous book, I would also recommend. And he also republished and edited and updated How to Survive a Pandemic. This was actually a book that he had written, I believe, like quite a while ago, but he just updated it to be current with what's happening right now. So this book feels so important. It really freaked me out when I was reading it. I feel like the title might be a little bit of a misnomer because there's not, aside from some, preparedness tips and stuff like that, this is not a super actionable book. It's How to Survive a Pandemic basically means we've got to abolish factory farming. Probably not going to happen. So it's a little bleak, but it's super detailed. I learned a lot about H5N1, the potential of future pandemics and things like that. So really scary, but really important. And again, like I said, I've talked about this book in a previous video and loved it. I like this better than How Not to Diet, which was also a really, really good book. So the other, I don't actually have it in front of me. The other current event book, and this is one I just recently finished. I finished it, I think, this month, in December. It's not December anymore. My brain is still stuck in December. It is called The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And this was another. It's not current as in this year, but it's relevant in this era, in this time period. So I think it was written in 2017 or 2018. It talks a lot about the protests and stuff happening on college campuses. The focus of the book has a lot to do with college campuses. And it spends the book dissecting 3 ideas that were promoting 3 untruths. So for example, one untruth would be that like to overemphasize what we feel, that feelings are really important, and if we feel something, therefore it must be true. And there's a couple others as well, and the book centers around these, giving examples of how they're playing out, how and suggestions on how we could raise more anti-fragile, resilient children and kids, and I just feel like it was really important to read as a parent and an educator. So and as a human, it's just a really interesting book. I liked it a lot. So those are my picks from 2020. I'd love to see in the comments below what you guys read and what you guys loved. Usually when I pick up a book, I'm taking it as a recommendation from someone else. So drop your recommendations down below. You can add me on Goodreads. I believe on Goodreads I am Allysia K. So yeah, feel free to add me. I usually friend people on there. I have I don't know, I just like having a wide palette of friends on Goodreads. And I'll catch up with you with some goal stuff in the next video. Bye guys.